in particular that you think this could affect? Stacy, I know you unmuted.
Yeah, I just noticed in that field that not a lot are. I know I agree with Chris. I did used to see a lot with Coldwell Banker mentioning the percentage. I don't see anyone mentioning any numbers now, but at the very bottom of that box, it does say seller is offering buyer agent compensation. So maybe they'll be keeping that.
Yeah, it says, if I'm looking at it, I believe it says they'll be removing all compensation fields.
Yeah, that was my understanding of
Yeah.
it too, Steve, was that entire section of the MLS for MLS PIN is going to be removed. It's going to have to be conversations if you choose to ask, right? I have my opinions also on whether you should ask before or not, because once you ask, then if you go back and write something else, you're kind of the a-hole. Um, I'd rather just kind of put it in there, right? And then let's negotiate it. Let them come back to you and say, hey, we like everything, but we're actually only offering X or Y rather than Z, rather than asking it straight up. Only time I'm really asking is if they say something right away before you ever get the opportunity to ask, and then just confirming if it is broker to broker or seller to broker. I actually had one agent last week who said, oh, I have no idea. Nobody's ever asked me that before. Let me find out. Okay.
Yeah. It does not surprise me for an agent to not understand the difference. Chris, I see your hand up again.
Well, I'm just going to say that, like, I had 2 listings live this weekend that I have open houses on, and I cannot tell you how many times my phone rang on Saturday and Sunday to ask me, are they offering a buyer's broker compensation? So it is such a pain in the ass, but I can appreciate that. And I answer my phone because this is my job. You know what I mean? And the answer is always the Sharon answer. My seller is absolutely open to buyer broker compensation in an offer. And I wish I could write it somewhere, kind of like someone just wrote that it's people are putting it in the description or whatever, but that's against the rules too. It can't be on the MLS anywhere. You're not supposed to.
Well, that's interesting, though. I thought, I
No,
can't
my
remember when
coach
all this went
who's
down. I thought you couldn't put what you were offering. I don't know that it's against it to say that they're willing to offer. We'll have to look into that, because maybe that's how this plays out in the future, is we use firm remarks. I don't think it's a disclosure, right? So one thing for you guys to understand with these MLSs, there is a difference between you putting something in firm remarks and putting it in the disclosures. Disclosures are going to end up on a lot of these third-party sites. The firm remarks are exactly that. It's for agent to communicate with another agent at another brokerage. So we should see it in firm remarks. I don't know. I'm just familiar with Amber saying that's what she means. She's seeing it in firm remarks. So I don't know if every MLS operates like that. I'm just most familiar with MLS PIN, but there is a difference. So just be careful about where you are putting that. So does anybody remember the legality or
I
is this
would love
something?
you to find that out, Steve, because I
Yeah.
did ask Justin and he said no. He
Okay.
said that you could not to put it anywhere.
Anybody
Remember when
else?
they were putting like 1 apple or 2 apples or 3 apples, and then we weren't allowed to do that? That was kind of like a workaround.
Yeah, but say
Yeah,
I'm saying
my
don't even
understanding
say,
of it.
just I am on. Go ahead, Lauren.
Sorry, my understanding of the law was it's not supposed to be there at all, right? They allowed for a little bit some MLSs, either yes or no, we are offering it. It already disappeared these fields for a little bit and then came back. Um, but it shouldn't be anywhere in writing, right? You can disclose it if they call you, if they ask you, yes, we're willing as part of the offer, but it shouldn't be in writing on any MLSs that have any sort of association with NAR.
I'm going to just verify that one. I'm going to verify that and see if we can't use firm remarks to say seller is offering it, but not list. So Because I agree with
So
you,
anyone
Chris.
on this
What a
call, just
nightmare to have to just answer every single one of those phone calls to say, yeah, I mean, just bring us your offer. We'll consider every offer. You know? Were you gonna chime in, Chris?
I was just going to say, so anyone on this call or online, just know my sellers are well educated and they're all willing
Right.
to, and you don't need to call me. Just
Yeah.
put it in.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else have any thoughts on this and how it might affect any type of business or all right.
It's a section in the offer. Just like any other request your client can make as part of their offer, it is a whole section in the offer if you are requesting it.
So the mass purchase and sale or the mass offer form has a section in there that says we are requesting
The
this.
buyer is requesting the seller to compensate the
Okay.
buyer broker X%, and then there's two check boxes below that. This is either in addition to a buyer broker compensation being offered, or there is no additional offers of compensation by the buyer broker made as part of this contract. It is a whole section in there. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, just write up your offers, right? And then make sure we're having a conversation with the listing agent to discuss it. Anybody else? Chris.
Well, I was just going to say, it's funny how Lauren and I feel so strongly that way, but we're also teaching these agents, call the list
Right.
agent, call the list agent. So we're so contradicting, right? But it is very true, you know?
Yeah, it's right in there. Yeah, I do feel like it's hard to just make an offer, right? Like that is weird. If we're really trying to put the best offer forward, I need to talk to the person that represents the seller to see what is the best offer. There's so many different scenarios with a seller. So just as a listing agent, you do got to answer the phone. It should be a more educated question than are you offering buyer's agent compensation, right? It's hey, what are we looking at for timelines? You know, do we need to have a lease back? Do they need any of the furniture? Do they want it removed? Right? What are some of the other kind of like really things that can move the needle, do you think, that you're hearing or you're seeing from a seller? Be like, man, it'd be great if the buyer could do X. Is there, those seem to be the common things, right? Can you let me lease it back for a little bit? Can you take the house with my crap? I don't want to have to deal with getting rid of all of this stuff. I said a third thing. I don't remember what it was, but what else is are some of the key things for a seller that we're seeing?
I have this whole thing where we spent a lot of time on what questions we do want to be asking written out in conversation form. I'm going to go pull the link for it and post it in chat because I know that the link to our critical real estate conversations are available to everybody on our resource website.
Appraisal
Any-
gap is a big one for sure.
Okay. Yep. Yep. Right. But I think that one is just more, you should do that, right? You should cover that. Anything specific to the seller, right? My seller needs X, right? It could be some stuff that you're not even thinking. Like, yeah, the buyer's totally fine with that, right? Any other like weird little things like that you've had a seller be like, hey, do you think the buyer could do X? Obviously, pay my closing costs, not necessarily a thing a seller might even think to ask, but a buyer, especially in this market, not only am I going to take care of my own closing costs, I'll pay yours. Anything else that we can do to help out a seller or? All right. All right, and then I'll just kind of open up to the floor. What do you guys got going on your transactions? The MLS pin news was pretty big news. Anybody have something weird or unusual happening you solved? You put a deal together in a weird way? Go ahead, Molly.
So I had an offer accepted where we had a escalation clause, and the request for compensation I had in my offer was lower than the competing offer they had. So just when that happens, making sure you have the conversation that is actually the net that you're going to be beating, as opposed to, just the highest number outright, regardless of what the compensation is. So in this one, I actually ended up being able to get the compensation to be the same as that one, um, and beat them still in the price, but just making sure you bring that up so
Yeah,
you're
this is
not
a great,
overpaying your client.
yeah. Yeah, this is a great little tidbit here that you guys really got to pay attention to. Um, so Molly, maybe could you just use some round numbers to give an example, just, like thousands, to kind of talk about how that ended up being without talking about percentages?
Sure. So, um, theoretically, our offer came in 300, asking for 2 bananas. Competing offer came in, or say we came in 300, we'll escalate up to 310, asking for 2 bananas. Competing offer was 305, asking for 2.5 bananas. So instead of coming up to 307 with 2 bananas, making sure it's either 307 and 2.5 bananas, or whatever the math works out to,
To be.
306 and change, so that it's the same net
Yep.
that you're beating out.
Yep. Good. Right. That's a good one. I think would probably get overlooked a little bit. So great. Those are the little tidbits. Love it. Great share. Chris.
That's a great one, Molly. That's all I
Yep.
have to say. Like, that's a great one. I myself have to honestly say I didn't even think of that till Molly just said it, and why I get on this call in the morning.
Stacy.
So I have the same thing going on right now, Molly. I'm going to hear back this morning. We put an offer in last night and I did put a compensation and I'm not sure. But I did ask in the email when we submitted the offer, like I repeated a couple of times, please get back to me on this if we can improve our terms, so it's open. And I have communication with him and I left a message with him. So I think we're only 2 offers against each other. So we'll see. But I'm in the same spot right now, waiting to hear back.
And just make sure that word net's in there when you're putting your offer in, highest net offer, because I had a couple yesterday that just came in over the highest offer. Net wasn't in there.
Oh, that's great. Okay.
Yep. Yep. Always using that word net. And make sure, I hate to say this, but make sure the other agent can do the math. Like, you might want to like break it down. Hey, just so you know, like here is what your seller is going to net. Show them the math.
Yep.
I have a feeling that a lot of sellers don't, or listing agents don't necessarily understand all the math, right? So, hey, I just wanted to make it nice and easy for you, so I don't want to insult anybody. I broke out the math, right, and just show the different line items, including the buyer's agent or the buyer, yeah, buyer's agent compensation in there.
And plus, to making sure that when you get that competing offer, you see the full offer and not just like cropped, because they could be asking for seller concessions or whatever. I've definitely had that happen where they just send like a just cropped of just the actual price. I'm like, gotta see the whole thing.
Right. So just making sure I'm being clear why Molly's pointing this out, right? If the offer is $500,000 and your offer is 510, so you've got it, and that was the next highest, but they were also asking for $10,000 in concessions, and they were also asking for X, Y, and Z, and the offer is really 475 at the end of the day, right? So that's why you need to see the whole offer when you're doing these escalations.
Also, make sure that you are blacking out, if you're the list agent, the other buyer's name and that information, because that should not be going to another agent.
Any other thoughts on the escalation clauses or appraisal gaps? Anybody had any issues with the appraisal gaps? Are we usually covering, what's the norm right now on how much of the gap or is there no norm? Hey, I got some people that cover the whole thing, some are covering half. Anybody want to say, hey, this is kind of typically what I'm seeing? Anybody feel confident giving a number there? Go ahead, Steve.
So I had a couple in the last few weeks. One we were willing to cover 5,000 over, which was kind of part of the, you know, pre-offer talk to strengthen our offer. But I had one that we were confident was not going to have an appraisal gap. It ended up having a 3650 gap. So we went back to negotiate. The sellers said, "Hey, we'll throw 1,000 your way." And I talked to my buyer and he's like, "I don't want to lose the house. I'll come up with that other 2650." And funny you were talking about math because we had a credit originally for, X amount and minus we had to kind of rework everything in an addendum and it came out to a 6,100 credit and the sellers were like, "No, no, no, we're coming back at 6,750 credit." And I'm like, "That's great." Like I could have just been like, "Let's sign that because that's more for my buyer." But the attorneys, I would assume, would hopefully pick up on that. And I had to break down the math and say, "Here's the math. It's 6,100 like we sent you. And we're all in agreement here. Let's put the right numbers in here, even though, but the guy was really appreciative that, we didn't try to take advantage and, sneak through the extra on his error. But yeah, I think some agents, not everybody's good at math. And it was, a little weird. So I did it line by line, sent the text, sent an email, made sure everybody was in agreement, everybody was, and our number was right. So at least we knew how to do our math at Roby Homes here.
Yeah, it's just a thing. Like some people are just not good at math. That's fine. No biggie. You might be a great agent and a great negotiator, and just math isn't your thing. So let's just make sure we get the numbers right. And I love the honesty thing. I feel like that stuff always comes back to bite you if you try and take advantage of somebody on something like that, a typo, this, that, the other. I think the most shocking thing you said was 3,650, the appraisal shorted you guys.
Yep.
Oh my God.
And
That's wild.
the wild part was that was the one where Eric, we were worried about an appraisal gap. The sellers were. Eric had his appraiser go, "No, we'll hit 300, no problem." And then I'm like telling my buyer, I'm like, "Oh my God." I had to go tell the seller and my buyer, I'm like, "We were confident this wasn't going to happen." And it happened.
Here it is.
So,
Yeah.
but I guess you just don't know which appraiser you're going to get and all that. But
Yeah.
my buyer was like, "I'm not starting over." I mean, we lost out on, half a dozen offers and finally got one. And we were strong and he was learning, the market right now and trying to be a little stronger as we progress through the process. And he wants to get to the finish line. So he has the money he scraped up and wants to keep going. So everybody's happy.
Yeah. When you're that close, right? Let's just get the deal done. To go back to market and do it all over again. I mean, you're going to spend that much just doing another home inspection, another appraisal on the next property. All right, we got time for one more. Who else has got a little something unique, or you learned something? Just a good share for the group here. Go ahead, Margareta.
Morning, all. As we're talking
Margareta,
about
be
also
honest. Did you feel like, you know what? I haven't got a chance to get on the air today. I just got to get.
No, I was trying to stay quiet today,
All right,
but I
all
have
right,
a
all right.
pressing question, and I think it kind of ties well nicely, but it's about payouts. So when we're talking about net sheets for sellers and putting together the closing statements, I guess I want to make sure that something I kind of didn't know well, but there's the commissions, how we used commissions, and that is just for broker to broker payments. But then sometimes you have maybe contractor kind of payouts. So I don't think we've pretty much talked about payouts. So sometimes from the proceedings of the sale, there's payouts here. So making sure that we don't confuse commissions with payouts, because I did that. I thought like, oh, it's just part of commission payment. But no, be very clear. Payouts are payouts to anybody who would be a licensed contractor. So I guess I do have a
Let's just
question. Can
hold
payouts
on though.
be for anybody?
Hold on. Let's just stop there for a minute. So, give me a little bit more detail about what you're referring to.
So, let's say somebody worked on the house before the sale and the seller doesn't have money to pay them. So it will come out of the
Proceeds of the sale.
proceeds. Yeah.
Yep. And you're just saying you got it
It's how
confused.
you
And you,
label those.
yeah, separate line item for that, right? So, hey, we
Yeah.
sold it for 500, but the roofer agreed to get paid out of the closing. So the roofer's going to get a check for 15,000 at the closing. So now we're down to 485, Mr. Seller, and we agreed to pay the buyer's agent. That was 10 grand. So now we're down to 475. Right. And then you've got your closing costs, et cetera. So your net is, 465. So just
Exactly.
separating out those line items. Okay, good.
And the big one is, I've kind of confused that. I thought some of it could be rolled under a commission, like let's say that but no, commissions, because there's some laws against that. Commissions is broker to broker. Is that correct, Steve? Am I thinking about this right?
Well, it doesn't have to be broker to broker, right? Especially now. Now it's seller to broker, right? So this is what in the what we started with, where Coldwell was still putting compensation being offered. That is coming from the broker. Actually, maybe MLS PIN had the ability to say if it was coming from the broker or if it was coming from the seller. Does anybody know? Did the MLS?
Yes, it did.
It did say which one it was coming from?
Yes.
Okay. So, at this point, the whole lawsuit was no broker to broker, right? So it's seller to broker, right? So it does not, you don't get compensated from the other brokerage, which is how it used to be, right? If you're working for XYZ brokerage, the check would come in the mail. If you did it with ABC brokerage, the check comes from ABC brokerage. Now the check is coming directly from the closing proceeds. So it's going to come from the escrow company.
Yeah, I guess what my problem was when I took the listing agreement on this, we didn't have how much we were going to offer to the buying agent. So, we're catching that up now before the closing. So there has to be addendum put in because it's not really, we have it technically on our agreed offer, but my TC wants a full-on document. So I don't know how are people dealing with this, because sometimes you might not have that in your listing agreement. What are you offering? Because you might not want to offer something.
Yeah, you're just going to put it right into the purchase and sale. And Lauren, is in the purchase and sale, it can say in this scenario for Margaretta, she could just use the purchase and sale and put it right into there. You don't need an addendum or anything.
That's correct. The purchase and sales now have a full breakdown of what sellers compensating both sides. If there is any broker to broker, it is fully broken down into the purchase and sale contracts now. So that should be enough use, and then you would have a commission statement that would reflect it.
Yeah, so if you guys, if this got negotiated after purchase and sale was signed, then we could just do an addendum to the purchase and sale.
Yeah, no, that's good. So yeah, but I guess something I really wasn't paying attention with all the new laws, something to keep track of. Payouts are different than commissions.
Yep. All right, guys, we are up at the 9 o'clock hour here. Good stuff today. Appreciate everybody. A lot of people chipping in today, which was always a pleasure. So go have yourselves an awesome Monday, and we will do it again tomorrow. Take care.